สวัสดีค่ะ Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the very special event today, Sustainability Spotlight 2024, Corporate Assessment and Future Sustainability Strategies. My name is Chayapha Chayaviwathanawong and I will be your MC today. As you may know, sustainability is a key agenda of the world this day, whether you are investor, practitioner, or regulators. Companies with a good ESG are not only spotlighted by existing investors, but also attract new investors around the world. However, the development of ESG is not static, but keep moving forward every day. New ESG issues such as biodiversity and IFRS S2 are new dimensions that companies should understand and get ready once those are fully implemented. Before we start the first session today, I would like to inform you that you can download the presentation and also submit the question in English by scanning the QR code displayed on the screen right now. At the end of each session, set staff will select some questions for the speakers. สามารถนะคะดาวน์โหลดตัว presentation แล้วก็ submit คำถามนะคะเป็นภาษาอังกฤษนะคะโดยการสแกน QR code ที่ปรากฏอยู่บนหน้าจอในขณะนี้นะคะ And now it's time for the first session. I would like to welcome and invite Ms. Radhika Thoma, Director Corporate Engagement at Sustainable One, S&P Global Corporate Sustainability Assessment on the stage to present and share on the topic of corporate sustainability assessment. Please welcome.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to start by thanking the Stock Exchange of Thailand for hosting us today. It is a wonderful opportunity for us to be here with you today and talk about S&P Global's Corporate Sustainability Assessment. I would also like to thank each and every member of the audience who's given us their time today to hear about S&P Global's Corporate Sustainability Assessment. But before I actually delve into my presentation, I will give you a quick background of myself. I'm Radhika Thoma and I work as Director for Asia Pacific, looking after the corporate engagement for the Corporate Sustainability Assessment. Some of you might know my colleague, Robert Dorno, who's the head of corporate engagement and is based out of Zurich. Now, I think it's a very opportune moment for us to be here today, and there is a special reason for it. And the reason being is that this year, especially the last year submission of the Corporate Sustainability Assessment, sorry, I'll be using the word CSA. Corporate Sustainability Assessment is too big an acronym to be using again and again, so simply call the CSA. So last year, with the submission, we completed 25 years of our existence, which means that we've been present here for 25 years. So if we just talk about our journey a bit more, when we started back in 1999, there were only 280 participants that used to participate in this process. If you will see the graph on my right, you will see the tremendous growth that we had over the years. Last year, we saw 3,500 plus companies participating in the Corporate Sustainability Assessment. And if the names that you see on this slide are 179 companies that have been participating year on year since the last 20 years. So this process has been long, it's quite tested, and we are very thankful to corporates who've been part of this process. If I look at the CSA participation by location and sector, I'll move on towards the sector. We will see that some of the industries have performed better in terms of materials, capital goods, banks, diversified financials, real estate, and so on. But today is about Thailand because we are here today. Thailand holds a very special place for the Corporate Sustainability Assessment. And the reason being is that the companies from Thailand have performed exceptionally well in the CSA journey. So if we look at the participation rate of Thailand in the last decade, we will see that we've really seen tremendous growth from 2014 to 2023. Last year, we had around 70 companies that participated in the corporate sustainability assessment from Thailand. I would also like to give a special shout out to the companies who've been doing this for the past 10 years or have been with us over a decade. And these are all companies from Thailand. We've got Advanced Info Service, Bangkok Bank, Banpu PCL, BTS Group Holdings, Central Patana, Cheron Pok Fund, Indorama Ventures, IRPC, Kasikorn Bank, Krung Thai, Minor International, PTT Exploration and Production, PTT Global Chemical, PTT, PCL, Siam Cement, Thai Beverage, Thai Oil, Thai Union, and True Corporation. So a big round of applause for these companies who've been part of this journey for 10 years. Moving on, yeah, please give them a round of applause if you would like. Thank you so much for that. Now, I understand in this room today, we have companies who've been CSA participants for either 10 years or maybe a couple of years and maybe a bit more aware of the CSA process. But I understand that we also have participants who would like to start their journey, and we would really like to have outreach to the companies who want to be participants of the CSA going forward. So in my presentation, what I'll cover today is what is the CSA, what does it entail and how do you actually participate, and what is the CSA process? Finally, what is the use of CSA results? I will also answer some of the pre-submitted questions that we've received from the Stock Exchange of Thailand as we go along in our presentation. So just to talk about the CSA, it simply assesses the ESG factors expected to have an impact on companies' growth, profitability, capital efficiency, and risk exposure. So one of the reasons, I know all of you here are company representatives, and it doesn't matter what I say to you, but it matters more what your peers say to you. Therefore, we went to the companies and we asked for a feedback on why companies actually respond to the CSA. So the top 3 reasons that motivates a company to participate in the CSA, responded by the companies themselves, are 3. First was increased visibility with sustainability-focused investors. The second was a lot of companies, and I've seen this myself, that a lot of companies came to us and said that they want to use the CSA as a benchmarking tool to understand their own performance and therefore improve their sustainability performance year on year. And finally, enhancing the reputation with internal and external stakeholders, which goes beyond investors. Moving ahead, how does the CSA process work? Now, the CSA process works through what we call as the CSA portal, which is nothing but the online corporate sustainability assessment questionnaire. Now, one of the myths that I do want to break in this session is that a lot of companies say that if they register on the CSA portal is similar to CSA participation. This is not true. So if you are an invited company, you can register on the CSA portal and be able to see your scores, but it does not necessarily mean that you have participated in the CSA until and unless you actually choose a participation window which you want to take for the CSA responding to the CSA. Now, the CSA portal is quite unique. It's a software system on its own. The portal looks like what you see on the left-hand side, where you see the whole questionnaire. The questions are on the left-hand side of the computer screen that you see. And then we have the question rationale, additional guidance, everything is inbuilt into the CSA portal. It is an intuitive interface for ease of navigation. It has a traffic light system to enable effective project management among multiple users. It's also a central repository. So everything that you want to know about the CSA, whether you want to know about the methodology, you want to know about the CSA handbook, which is a set of guidance for the CSA, if you'll see the right-hand side on the tab, you will see every document and tutorial related to the CSA inbuilt into the CSA portal. We also have the benchmarking tools and the peer practice database, which helps you assess your own performance and benchmark against it, and also benchmark your performance against your peers. We also have account management function, which basically means that we absolutely understand that sustainability is not a one-person journey in a company. There are many users who are responsible for this. And therefore, there is no limit to the number of users you can assign on the CSA portal. We have one admin, and then that admin person from the company can decide how many users to have and also limit the access you want to provide to each user. Now, moving to the questionnaire itself, the questionnaire is divided into 3 dimensions: governance and economic, environmental, and social dimension. Within each of the dimension, we further break it down to what we call criteria. There are 23 to 25 criteria in the questionnaire, and within each criteria, there are different set of questions, rounding to about 100 and 120 questions. And all these questions give us data points which ultimately result into the CSA score. Now, the beauty of the CSA questionnaire is that we absolutely understand that every industry is different, and therefore the question is also industry specific. So 50% of the question is generic, which means it is common across industry. Let us take the examples here. Let's talk about governance and economic dimension. Questions like corporate governance, code of business conduct, risk and crisis management, they are quite common across industries. If we talk about the environmental dimension, we have questions on climate strategy, environmental reporting, again, generic questions, and then questions on human rights and human capital development. However, the question is also tailored to meet the needs of the industry. We have 62 industry-specific approaches. There are 62 industries, and there are 62 types of CSA questionnaire for them. And how they differ is depending on which industry you belong to. To illustrate this with the help of an example, I've got 3 industries here. There's mining and minerals, restaurants, and pharmaceuticals. Example is that if a company is within the mining domain, questions pertaining to them will look more like mineral waste management, social impacts on communities, asset closure. If we move to restaurants, the nature of questions will move more towards sustainable agricultural practices, sustainable marketing, packaging of the food products. And when we move to pharmaceuticals, things like access to drugs, innovation management become extremely important. Now we move to the questionnaire in terms of what is the level of disclosure required in the CSA. So currently the way the questionnaire is designed is that it's divided into 3 types of questions. 50% of the questionnaire has questions which require the information to be available in the public domain, which basically means that if you are to answer a question, you don't have to give a written response, but you can provide the public URL and tell us exactly where in the public URL that information could be found. 35% of the questions are such where your information may be private and you will get a score for it, but if that information was in public, you could have got additional credit for it. And 15% of the questions do not require any public reporting. They are called private questions, and they are governed by our user information and confidentiality policy. So this is how the CSA questionnaire looks like. Now I received some of the pre-submitted questions from the Stock Exchange of Thailand, and I would like to focus a bit on them. So one of the questions we receive is on board gender diversity. Now we often see that there are certain industries, and it has been observed in industries like mining and agriculture, where the board gender may not be optimal to what is expected. Now, before I answer the question, let me tell you how the CSA team is divided, because that will help you understand in perspective on how these questions are designed. So I'm part of the CSA corporate engagement team. My role is to engage with corporates, understand your questions and queries, and try to answer them to the best of my ability. But at the same time, we have a whole research team behind the CSA questionnaire. The objective of the research team is to develop the CSA methodology. They look at every question, the rationale behind the question, and there is certain bit of research which backs that rationale. And we have industry experts across each of these methodologies that are helping and curating the questionnaire. So the reason, the rationale behind the board gender diversity question here is that we believe that the higher the board gender, there is more diverse workplace, there's more diversity of ideas. And CSA being a global proprietary methodology, we have seen that boards that have better gender diversity perform well. We are also trying to see that if the ratio of women is high in management, but it's not reaching the board level, then that is also not correct for the whole system or for a company. Therefore, the reason behind the board gender diversity question is to have an optimal gender on the board. For example, where we have the one-tier board, and I understand that Thailand has the one-tier system, we count women on the board that are independent directors, executive directors, and non-executive directors. In systems where we have two-tier boards in the board management, only women who represent in the supervisory board can be considered. Similar to this question, we also received a question on management ownership for state-owned enterprises. Now for this question, what we can do is that if you're a state-owned enterprise and you get a question on management ownership, you can say that this question is not applicable to you, but that conversation has to happen with our CSA research team ahead of the CSA submission. So what I'm trying to say is that if you're a state-owned enterprise and you feel that the management ownership question is not applicable to you, please write your reasoning to our CSA helpline, which is csa@spglobal.com. That goes to your concerned researcher. They will come back to you if they have any additional questions. And with that, they will be able to tell you if your response is accepted or not, given the confidence they have in your response. So that is the answer we have for management ownership. We also received a question on the board average tenure. Now we expect the board average tenure amongst board members to be 7 to 12 years, and the rationale behind is that there should be continuity and longevity in the board for companies to perform. However, we've seen cases where there can be companies which are newly formed. Now in these cases, there are three options that a newly formed company has. If you are a newly formed company and you are less than 10 years old, similar to my previous question, you can write a written response to the CSA helpline and say you are a newly formed company and this question is not applicable to you. Provided the reasoning, given the reasoning you provide and whatever the analysts kind of defer out of it, this question can be not applicable to you. The second option is that if you are a newly formed company, a newly formed public company from a private company, then if some of your board members are the same, which were there in the private company, their experience can be counted and you can provide that reasoning to our researchers ahead of your CSA submission. And the last is that if you are a newly formed public company that is a spin-off or a merger, then again you can provide the experience of the board members that have been retained from the previous entity, the unmerged entity, and then provide it to our researchers who can make sure whether this answer is acceptable or not. In any case, what I'm trying to say is that if you have a confusion or need clarity over a methodology question before your submission, you have the option of submitting your rationale and your question ahead of time to the CSA helpline, who will come back to you and provide you an answer whether they need more information or if your answer can be accepted or not. Now, if a question is not applicable, it is not same to having a 0 score in the questionnaire. If a question is not applicable, it basically means that the weight of that question is then redistributed into the other questions, but there is no impact on your score. So this is what I just wanted to highlight through the examples of some of the pre-submitted questions that we received. We also received one of the queries from existing companies. So for example, sometimes companies provide a response, and when we score them and give them the final response, some of the responses that the companies provide may be unticked or changed. Now, how does that happen? First of all, I really want to highlight that we appreciate what the corporates do or what companies do for their sustainability journey. It takes a lot of effort, and we are really appreciative of it. But that also means that you are able to see the questionnaire from your eyes, whereas we are able to analyze it from how the CSA questionnaire should function. One of the differences between participating in the CSA and working and applying for a sustainability standard is that in a standard you are only complying with certain requirements. With the CSA, we are here to help you for your investors on what is the quality of your disclosure. I will try to give an example here which will explain the reasoning that I'm giving better. We often see companies who have this question on OHS policy who come back to us and say that we have an OHS policy in place, but we have not been scored on this question. Now, it is very important to see that what is the subset of questions being asked in the question itself. So, for example, in the OHS policy question, if you come down to the question level, you will see that the exact questions that we are asking is the OHS policy applicable to the company's entire operation, employees as well as contractors? Do you have a commitment to continually improve the performance of the OHS management system? Is there setting up of prioritization and action plans? If the disclosure of these points is not clear from the documentation provided by companies, then we are not able to score on those particular points. So with that, examples of the questions within the CSA questionnaire, I'll move ahead and talk about how the ESG score is constructed. So what we did last year is we introduced something called modeled ESG scores. Now to avoid any confusion between the two, let me put it very simply. A CSA score is a score that a company receives based on the assessment of the CSA questionnaire. The model score is what we introduced last year, where we have a modeling methodology and we model some of the questions that did not require public information to give certain benefit of doubt to the companies who were not responding to the CSA. And the rule of thumb for a model score is that the higher a company's disclosure level and related performance overall, the higher the score for questions with missing disclosure. If you want to look at how the score looks on our website, you can see on the left, where in the blue you can see the CSA score, in the green you see the model score, and the final blue and green that you see on the right is the S&P Global ESG score, which has your CSA score plus the model score. We also give you a bit of an analytics into where your score is performing compared to the average in your industry, what is the disclosure that you are providing, and what is the gap between the optimal disclosure and your disclosure, and also what is the points that you have gained in the model score. In the final score, you can see what the CSA score is, what is the additional disclosure that you have, and what are the model score. This is how the score of a company looks like on the CSA website. Now, the S&P Global, I've already spoken about it. This provides some more details on the model scores. Now, talking about the CSA 2024 timeline, I'm really sorry for this slide. This still says CSA 2023, but it should be CSA 2024. So, for the corporate sustainability assessment, world over, we invite around 13,000 companies. It's important to note that if you are an invited company, the CSA is absolutely free of cost to you. There's not a single penny that we charge. What you have to do is simply go to our new invitation lookup tool, which is available on our website. And you can just type your name and see if your company is invited or not. For this year, the questionnaire will open on 3rd of April, which is coming very soon. You can pick, so what we have is 2 months participation window starting from 3rd of April going till Jan 2025, which means that you can choose the window of your preference. It could be April, May, June, July. It depends on what is your reporting cycle and where you want to do it. There are deadline extensions available for around 15 days, but they are on a first come, first serve basis. So please be sure if you want to have a deadline extension and let us know quite in advance. We also, I'll talk about the score release a bit later in my slides. And then if I just talk about the CSA participation cycle, there are a couple of dates I would emphasize on. If you are a DJSI eligible company, and you want your score to be included for DJSI rebalancing, the submission deadline for the CSA for you in this case is the July-August window, with 31st August as the CSA submission deadline. If you're interested in the sustainability yearbook, in this case, the deadline submission is, the deadline of the submission is August-September window, with 30th September as the deadline for consideration into the yearbook. So these are the two important dates for companies. But otherwise, the CSA cycle will start from April and go on till December, January as the last window. The rebalancing of the DJSI this year is planned for December 13. There might be a change later on, but this is what we have as of now. And then I'll talk about the score release in the upcoming slides. Now, what is the use of CSA results? We speak a lot about the CSA. We talk about the CSA questionnaire. It's quite comprehensive in nature. But what is it at the end that the companies get out of the CSA results? So some of the things that we highlight are the use of CSA results is, we all feel, and all of us, I think we were also having a talk just a while back with the Stock Exchange of Thailand, that sustainability is a journey. There is always scope for improvement. So the step one that the CSA helps with is to measure your company's own sustainability performance, establish your baseline, and quantify your progress. The second step is that you can benchmark yourself against your peers. There are different options available, from quantitative analysis to a qualitative gap analysis. You can learn from the data. You can discuss the results with management and subject matter experts. And then eventually you can take action which will help in improving the sustainability progress year on year. So scores which are calculated from CSA are also a primary or secondary methodological component of over 200 indices by the S&P Dow Jones indices. If we look at the DJSI universe of invited companies, the DJSI family of indices includes the world's most valuable companies in the S&P Global Broad Market Index based on free float asset capitalization. We have the DJSI World, which is relevant to Thailand, where we have 2,500 largest companies of the S&P Global Broad Market Index, and the top 10% in terms of sustainability in each industry make it to DJSI World. Another important market from Thailand perspective is DJSI Emerging Markets. Here we have 800 largest companies from the emerging markets, and top 10% of them can make it to the DJSI Emerging Markets. Now, if you want to know more about your eligibility to be included in Dow Jones Sustainability Index, or if you were included this year or not, we have the index services, and you can write to the index_services at spglobal.com if you have any further index-related questions. I would like to take a pause here. And like I said, Thailand companies have been one of the top performing companies, at least in the APAC region. We see that Thailand is one of the strongest countries that has performed really well on sustainability. And therefore, we have a number of companies from Thailand which made it to 2023 DJSI World Components, and they also made it, some of them also made it to DJSI Emerging Markets. You can see the companies that have made to both these indices, last year. So this is the list from 2023. So a big round of applause for these companies who made it to DJSI World and DJSI Emerging Markets. What we also have is what we call as the Sustainability Yearbook. This is the S&P Global Sustainability Yearbook. And what we do here is that we actually do a comparison of the companies within an industry and then provide distinctions. These are top 1%, top 5%, top 10% industry movers and yearbook members. I'm quite pleased to say here again that Thailand has been one of the top performing countries. We have 14 companies that made it to the top 1%. You can see the list right up here. We've got top 5%, 7 companies again. And then in the top 10%, we have 6 companies. I'm sorry, my slide caught a little short because we have another 20 companies that made it to the yearbook from Thailand, which are industry movers and yearbook members. So a huge round of applause for these companies who made it to the yearbook. And with this, we hope that more and more companies from Thailand will participate in the CSA and aim to be in the yearbook next year. Now, moving to the use of CSA results. Sorry, I just have to go back. So last year, we introduced what is called the ESG Scores Report. Now, this report really helps put your CSA score in perspective. If you are a participant or you are not a participant, if you are just an invited company, I highly recommend to register yourself on the CSA portal and download your ESG score report from last year. What it provides is both your CSA score, your model score. It also provides the report highlights the industry drivers. It details company performance across the most material criteria for that industry. It reports on any controversy issue, if any, and compares the company to its industry peers. Last year, we've launched the ESG score reports for around 13,000 companies, and the delivery channels for these reports is both the Corporate Sustainability Assessment portal as well as our flagship S&P Capital IQ Pro Investment and Market Research, where these reports are available. Now, in terms of use of S&P Global ESG scores and CSA data by S&P Global clients, so current clients of S&P Global ESG scores are collectively based in over 49 countries. They're responsible for assets under management worth 38.5 trillion, and they have a total market capitalization of around 7.4 trillion. All these users are making use of the ESG scores and the underlying data points to either benchmark corporate performance, manage their investment portfolios, allocate financial capital, build engagement strategy, and many other reasons. So in 2023, we observed that 60% of the CSA participants, that is over 2,000 companies, agreed to share their additional disclosure provided in the CSA via the Capital IQ platform and leverage S&P Global's reach into capital markets. Now, moving about how do we communicate CSA results? So this is one of the other pre-submitted questions we received on how do we communicate CSA results and what is the ideal timeline to do so. So last year, what we used to have is called the monthly score release. But this year, we've made a change. What will happen this year is that we will have a bulk score release for a number of companies who've submitted, let's say, by June or July, and they will have the score release on 16th of August. Post that, we will not have monthly score releases, but there will be a continuous score release between 2 to 14 weeks. This depends basically on the load our ESG research team has. So companies can expect to receive their score within a target window of 2 to 14 weeks. Now, some of the dates we recommend to companies for posting their results. One is that we will have most of the companies having their score within the DJSI cycle. So if you are to use the score results from, let's say, November, most of the companies or your peers may be covered. The second timeline is around February when we have the yearbook. That's when most of the companies are covered. But if you want the absolute universe to be covered, then we have results coming out till March 2025. So that is what I would suggest in terms of communicating your results. I would also strongly suggest that when it comes to communicating the CSA results, we have the communication guidance. When you participate in the CSA, and if you're a yearbook member, then the emblem or the graphic that you get, it's for the CSA score and not the model score that we currently have. Now, overview of the methodology updates for CSA 2024. So one thing that I do want to highlight to companies who have been participating with us or who plan to participate with us in the coming times, we actually go to the companies and receive a feedback on the methodology every year. And this year, we did extensive consultation. And one of the aftermaths of this extensive consultation is that we were initially supposed to have our methodology webinar on 14th of March, but because we received so much feedback from the companies, it took us a while to compile all that. And the webinar is now planned for 28th of March. If you are interested to participate in the CSA this year, I strongly recommend that you register or sign up for the methodology webinar. It will be done by the head of research, Lotte, who will be able to provide the first-hand information on the methodology changes this year. However, since I'm here, I would kind of bring you an overview of what the methodology changes look like for 2024. But before I do that, I do want to kind of be transparent and tell you that why exactly do we do a methodology change year on year? The 4 primary reasons for the methodology updates are: one is to streamline data requirements and reduce the CSA questionnaire length as much as we can. We integrate existing data from other S&P Global methodologies into the CSA. We align with the current topics while removing topics that lack relevance. So you would see that some new topics are introduced, whereas the others are let go of. And then eventually it's to promote more transparency and more disclosure, something that's also valued by the investors. So if we look at the methodology updates overview for the coming year, these are the 6 questions which will move from the partially private earlier to public questions. This means that earlier you might be getting a score if this information was private to you, but there was no additional credit. But when a question becomes public, you can only be scored on that question if that information is now available in the public domain. So we have questions around electricity generation, where we talk about electricity capacity mix, electricity generation mix. On the energy side, we have the energy mix, oil and gas production, oil and gas reserves. We have product quality and content responsibility, protection of children, all will be moving towards the public domain. We also have additional 18 questions which will now move from private to partially public, which means that previously if that information was not available in the public, you were still getting the full score. But now you will get the full score only if that information is also available in the public domain. We have questions on climate strategy, financial risk of climate change, financial opportunities arising from climate change. There are questions on resource efficiency and circularity, such as on-site energy generation, automotive use phase decarbonization, vehicle fuel and carbon efficiency, the industry applicability. Some of them are applicable to all industries except a few, as you can see from my slide, and some are more relevant to some of the industries only. So this is the second set of questions that will become from partially private to from private to partially private. Again, questions on water, leakage rate, innovation management, product innovations in healthcare. We have market opportunities, new business opportunities for gas. If you are interested in participating in the CSA, 2 things that I highly recommend again is signing up for the webinar on 28th of March, but you can also look at our website. We will have the updated methodology updates document available for you. The questionnaire of the CSA will become available on 3rd of April. So if you want to register and sign up for the CSA, I would suggest that you do that, and you will be able to also see the questionnaire and download it. But you will only be able to start actually submitting the questionnaire once your participation window begins. With that, these are some of the additional resources we have. I spoke in the CSA portal. All our documents will be updated by end of March. We have the CSA FAQ document, number of tutorials available for your help, the CSA public website. We have the sustainability yearbook. This time we went all digital. And one of the feedbacks we received is that it should have been in the PDF format like last year. We take that input and we will see what best we can do the next year. We also have the public scores website that I talked about. With that, this is the corporate engagement team. You can see Robert Dorno is the head of corporate engagement. If you've been attending CSA webinars, he's a very familiar face, but then you can talk to any of our team members across. So with that, I am kind of done with my presentation, but very happy to take any questions that you have. And thank you again to the Stock Exchange of Thailand for hosting us and giving us this excellent opportunity. Sawadee ka.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Larika Thoma, for your exceptional sharing. There are 2 questions from the audience. The first question is, can companies not in the clean energy industry, such as coal or mining, participate in CSA? Can companies not in the clean energy, such as EV or something like that, participate in CSA?
Yes. So we invite participants from all industry. The only thing that you would have to see is that go to the CSA website, look at the invitation tool, and just type your company's name. If your company's name is there, and if you're an invited company, you can take part in the CSA. It's across all industry, including coal and mining. That's not an issue. If you are a company who's not invited, but you still want to do the CSA, we also have voluntary CSA services, and my colleagues will throw more light on them. But if you are a voluntary CSA participant, if you are willing to make your score public, then you can still do it free of charge. In case you want to keep your score private, then we have a service for fee. So that I think my colleagues in the room might be able to share more details better. And sorry, with that, I just also want to thank a big round of applause for my colleagues, Nicha, who's actually made it possible for the Stock Exchange of Thailand. She is our local representative here and super knowledgeable about the Thailand market. And I also have Sanya Joseph, who's my colleague from India, and Lloyd, who's right at the back taking photographs. Thank you, Lloyd, for doing that for me. So all of us are here to help you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There is one more question. In your opinion, what is the main challenge for business and private sector for receiving a higher score on CSA? What is the main challenge for business and private sector for receiving a higher score on CSA?
Receiving a higher score on CSA, very good question. I get that a lot, and I don't know how to answer that. I don't know if I was doing the CSA, whether I'll get 100 out of 100. I'll just be honest about it. First thing that I do want to mention is that when we start the CSA journey, please don't be disheartened, because the questionnaire is comprehensive. We understand that. And we are here to answer all your queries. But I can show you companies who've been doing it year on year, and their score has improved massively. It is quite possible for companies to score high, whether you're a private company or not, but it's just that the journey has to take its own course. It cannot be over a passage of time that you participate in the CS and you get the highest score. The second thing, which I really feel that companies miss the point, it's not a race out of 100. It's always how you perform compared to your industry. So if your industry average is 30, but you have a score of 65, you're almost getting a very high score. So it depends on the industry you belong in. It's never a race out of 100. Even for the top performing companies, it's not about having a score of 95 to 98. It's about how high you are compared to your own industry benchmark. That's why we say it's measuring performance against your own performance as well as against your peers, but it's not a race out of 100.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, please give a round of applause for Ms. Radhika. Okay, now we will have around 20 minutes break and we will resume at 10. ก็จะพักเบรกนะคะประมาณสัก20 นาทีแล้วก็จะกลับมาเริ่มเซสชันที่ 2 ค่ะตอน 10 นาฬิกานะคะ